didn't go so well for this. Since you guys have seen this last, there's been a bit of an oopsie. A big oopsie. Alright guys, so the last time you saw this car, we were sending John off. He was going to take a road trip up to Minnesota in this thing for Thanksgiving, I believe it was, and then we were going to handle his mushy bushings at a later date. Well, if you remember earlier, we'll put a clip here. John's been scraping. We noticed some scraping on his oil pan. So we told him, be smooth. Car's kind of low, nothing crazy, but kind of low, but be smooth with the oil pan. He took it on that trip. He made it to Minnesota. And I think the story is something along the lines of he made a wrong turn and he went down a dead-end street and he was just trying to turn around and then he macked a big old pothole and he cracked his oil pan, leaving him and his girlfriend stranded in Minnesota. Now we're going to go over the damage and we're going to proceed with replacing the oil pan and the mushy bushies. We're going to go ahead and take care of the oil pan gasket when we replace the oil pan, as well as a bunch of suspension components all around the car. Alright, so as you can see here, he literally shattered this oil pan. It looks like he made contact right here and it's simple, it just broke the oil pan. So needless to say, this oil pan is smoked, but luckily we were able to source him one. We had one in stock. If you don't know, when you put a 24 valve motor in the E34 chassis, you need to switch from the standard E36 style, which is a rear sump setup, to a front sump setup. So the E30 guys, when they put the 24 valve engine in the E30, they need this oil pan too. So it's a pretty sought after oil pan. Luckily, we were able to source him one relatively cheap. They're about 3 times the price as a standard oil pan. As we stated before, and as you guys saw earlier, all of his suspension needs refresh too. We're going to be taking care of all of that, as well as new oil pan gasket. And hopefully, he's a little bit more careful with this oil pan being so low. We might explore our skid plate options, so stay tuned.
I'm here to show you that I'm different. My bitch type of freak to show me all the new positions. Trying to change the world, I swear I'm on a different mission. Fire out of every cylinder.
Engine support brace is set, which gives us the ability to hold the motor in place while we drop the whole subframe.
Thought your name was affidavit, way you always run your lips, and I can't hang around no who got reps out there for snitching. Hash and wax up in my joint, I'm higher up than Southwest. Trying to smoke with you unless we talking about a pound size. Say that I'm a dog, but I ain't turned into a hound yet. You be fronting on your moves, I like to call that shit about chat. I could go for days, but I think I...
All right, me and Adrian just got the subframe out and to the side, and that's pretty cool. So subframe is out, so now we can begin to tear this apart and replace it with new tie rods, a center link. Motor mounts are staying because those are new. We do have new arms, idler arms. So we'll go ahead and start stripping this and also attack the oil pan.
I go shopping in Japan, so caught me all on my back. Baker pulled up with the vintage, give me something to match. Catch me in the cut with gang, we all brought something to match.
Just got the oil pan out. As you can see, no bueno. That is absolutely crazy. Cracked it from the bottom all the way. Pull the gasket off. Let's see this right here. Wow. Split all the way to the top. That's just crazy. Standard procedure, make sure everything's clean where the gas is gonna sit to avoid future leaks. And in our case, we're replacing the pan, so this one is garbage. No use for this anymore. So while that's getting cleaned up, I will go ahead and clean up the bottom of the block. Currently have the new oil pan drying. For those who are curious what I used, I typically go with Alumiblast by Seymour. I've had great results in the past for a factory-like finish. So once the paint finishes curing, we will go ahead and install it in the E34.
Yes. Oh, it's the...
Oil pan is in and tight, so we will let that heal overnight. In the meantime, we are now stripping the front subframe. Just got the steering components removed. And next is the arms.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for the arms next and then clean everything up. And then from there, we'll probably splash a little bit of black spray paint on some stuff like this. I don't think it's worth completely sandblasting and recoating the subframe because it's actually pretty clean. But some of the corners like that could use some fresh paint.
Yeah, that never hurts.
Yeah, so I'll probably throw some of that on there. But yeah, next is, so full disassembly, clean up, and then start reassembling. And then we'll let this oil pan dry overnight, and then tomorrow we can throw it all back up in the car.
And then while we're here, it's also worth mentioning, if anyone doing this video has E34 coilovers for sale, John is interested in the near future to replace these. So if you have any for sale, feel free to reach out.
All right, guys, so as you can see by the pile of lemon quarter bags on the ground and the pile of parts in front of us, we swapped out all of these blown control arms, steering and suspension components for brand new lemon quarter stuff. And the stuff that we did not replace, we cleaned up, either sandblasted and coated or just threw some paint on to clean it up a little bit. When you disassemble stuff like this, a little bit of paint and a little bit of attention can go a really long way. So here's an example of the suspension. So stuff like this, you can see how much play is in these joints. I mean, besides the boot, just the play in this ball joint here it's horrible. So this is completely blown out. No use for any of that stuff anymore. We have all of our new stuff laid out here. The next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna be assembling it all. And then once it's all assembled, we'll throw it back up in the car.
So as of right now, we have all the parts laid out in sequence for how it's going to be assembled. So if you want to come closer, take a look at what we got going on. As you see these things laid out, that's how it's going to go as one full assembly. So you got the sway bar on the back. I believe this is like a subframe. That's technically what I would consider that. The steering assembly right in front of that, and then the arms to the knuckles and the hubs, and then the actual subframe itself. So from here, we're going to piece it together and get it inside the car.
Some designer that'll cost ya. Once my father died, that's when I turned into a boss. And if you test me, put you on a flyer, reading out your lost. Damn, everybody want the answers like I'm cool to play with. They gon' play this on the radio, but catch me at the station. Walling out my ass, we throwing bows up on the stage. And everybody in the crowd can get to spaz and get to raging. I ain't gonna settle, no, I'm not complacent. Never settle for the less, no, it's greatness what I'm chasing. Man up in the mirror, only that I'm racing. I'ma treat you like a child if I hear you start complaining. Richer than your favorite rapper, read about it. So far about the way you couldn't even see about it. Don't let me in your crib, I'm bound to blow some.
All right, guys, so subframe is in, one piece, went in pretty easy. We had a few things we were fighting along the way, as expected, but as you can see, up and mounted, everything is good to go. So we're gonna go ahead and fasten the brakes, lower it down, and park it outside. Next thing after this is to install a dipstick, put oil in it, and start it up and see how she runs. Our main concern is checking for leaks. Once there's no leaks, we'll know that we're good to go, and we can begin tackling the rear. As of right now, we decided it's best to leave the tie rods loose as we're still waiting for other parts and also have a rear subframe to tackle as well. It makes the most sense to wait until we get our alignment. That way we can lock everything down where it goes on the laser machine, and that way we'll know that everything is tight and drives straight. All right, guys, so just got everything buttoned up underneath. Now it's time for our first start. Just put oil in there. Now we're gonna start it and lift it up in the air and check for leaks.
How's it look? Anything leaking?
Nothing leaks.
I don't see any leaky.
No, everything's looking good. It's been running for about 10 minutes now.
Sweet. Well, I guess that's where we'll leave off. Next time you see this car, we'll be doing the rear subframe. but the front subframe is done, the new oil pan is done, so that's awesome. Sounds pretty good if I do say so. When we built this car, we did a full stainless exhaust, and I believe these are status group headers?
I think
are they? Oh no, these are the Super Sprints. That car has the status groups. These are the Super Sprints. I don't think we're gonna cut the episode here, but that's probably gonna conclude this part of the service. We're still waiting on some parts to start on the rear subframe, but hey, our lift is in hot commodity. We got to get this car off jack stands and on the lift. We took a look at some stuff, and it needs a lift. So, got to get that parked outside for now. So, as you just saw, we got the subframe in the front knocked out. So next, we're going to take our attention to the rear subframe. As you guys saw in our update video with this car, the rear subframe is worse than the front. But we wanted to get the oil pan knocked out first so the car's drivable. That's done, car's drivable, so next we're gonna be taking the rear subframe out of the car. So stay tuned as we get started on this. We'll be documenting a little bit of it. We're gonna be cleaning it up. Same thing as the front subframe, sandblast, fresh paint, some fresh hardware, and a lot of new suspension components. This being an E34, it's kind of similar to an E30. It really doesn't have a lot of suspension components back here. It's really just got the rear trailing arms, the subframe itself, the diff, the axles, the sway bars, and a few joints and bushings here and there. Regardless, sit back, relax, and watch us get started.
These boys are trying to play me. 1400 shout me out, we in the green room getting faded. Shared the stage with P&B and felt as if I really made it. How I came from in the LMC was Eastone, it's amazing. Dummy dug his grave when he tried to go outwork me. With the way I'm headed now, I might retire when I'm 30. I'm stuck up in my lane, you miss a line and steady swerving. I rip apart the beat, you think.
All right, so we got the subframe removed. This is a big girl here. So some of the things that did not go as planned, because this is the first time the subframe's been out in probably ever. So the handbrake or parking brake cables, those did not want to come out of the chassis at all. We tried here, but there was no room and they were really rusty and crunchy. So those got cut. We'll have to replace those. And then the other thing is this brake hose here. We voted to cut that and put a screw in it, just because look how crusty they are anyways. The lines themselves actually look pretty good, but this hose, super crusty. So rather than mess with it, we just decided to cut it. Luckily, the wheel speed sensors, those came out. Usually these will be real brittle and break into pieces, but these came out. They live here under the back seat. You can see the other side of the connector in there. Not too bad. The shocks gave us some trouble on this side specifically towards the end, so we had to beat this one, but these are on their way out anyways. So that's about it. So next we're going to get the diff out, get the axles separated, then we will continue with disassembly and start replacing on stuff and cleaning stuff up. All right, so as you see, we have exploded the subframe and there's tools everywhere. We've gone into that point of just disassemble everything where it's gonna look a lot worse before it looks better. We have destroyed our subframe bushings, the old ones that were cracked and ruined anyways, but we got those removed. We got the diff pulled. I think I'm gonna leave the axles in. I see no reason to try to beat them out of this rear subframe just to have an issue with one seized or something, because the car does have some rust. It's not rotted by any means, but a little bit of rust, right? So just to clean this up, since we're not gonna do a full disassembly on this, is we're gonna take this to the car wash. We're fortunate enough to have a car wash, a self wash right around the corner. And so it's quicker to throw this subframe on the forklift, take the forklift on a quick little road trip and clean it up that way than it's going to be to break out our pressure washer and everything like that. So we're going to take this over there with some degreaser, some oven cleaner, because it's just really, I mean, you can see it's just dusty. It's never been out before, at least in a very long time. Cleaning it up, we'll probably throw a coat of paint on it as well. I see no reason to sandblast it. So yeah, that's what we're going to do next, and then I'll check back in a bit. Took the forklift to the car wash just down the street. Easiest way to clean this thing up. All right guys, what's up? So you can see here we have the E34 subframe reassembled. We went through, sandblasted some stuff, painted some stuff, just scuffed some stuff up, like the actual subframe itself we didn't sandblast, but all the little bracketry and things like that we took over the sandblaster, got sandblasted and coated, and it all looks really good. We were able to replace all of the bushings, the diff bushings, the subframe bushings, and we're one subframe bushing short, okay? So shout out to our good friend Josh Miller. He came through with one loose rubber subframe bushing, so thanks to him, we'll be getting this back in today. So next thing we're gonna do, with the subframe completely assembled, we're gonna get it back, thrown up in the car, after I get this last subframe bushing tossed in that side of the subframe. Once we get the subframe in, we'll catch you guys up. All right guys, so just a few short minutes later, subframe is in the car. We got the exhaust on, all the heat shields, and the entire subframe is bolted up with a bunch of new parts. Sway bar bushings, sway bar end links, all of the subframe bushings, diff bushings, and everything else. The last thing that we need to do, because we replaced some brake hoses, is we need to bleed the brakes. So, give you guys a quick look at the subframe, and then we're gonna bleed the brakes, and that'll wrap up the rear subframe. All right guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode on probably my favorite build on our channel and really one of my favorite cars that I've put together myself. This E34 Touring owned by our buddy John. Thank you, John, to continuously let us play with your car. We appreciate your business, your trust, and all that. But more than that, we love this car. Catch you guys in the next episode. That's all for this one. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to check us out on all your social media platforms. You can find us under Retro Motorsports USA. Remember, if you guys are in the Chicagoland or the Tampa area and you need parts or service on any vintage BMW, contact us today. Thanks guys, I'll see you later.